So a very warm welcome, Constance, and thank you so much for taking out your time and joining this campaign of Goodera. I am Pratham Kashyap, and with me I have my colleague Suprena Chakravarti. We are from the non-profit partnerships team of Goodera, and since the MLK Day is coming, and we wanted to understand more about the cause and how are people supporting it and what is there that we are trying to achieve. So I wanted to get in a call, in a conversation with a non-profit like yours and a person like you who's been actively working on ground for this particular cause. So my first question would be the most basic one. Why still in the 21st century we are talking about the rights of people of color, and why is it so important to talk about these rights?
Well, I guess it still is going back to the historical content, unfortunately, of America. As we know, people of color were enslaved in America, and hierarchies of systems were established off of those after those enslaved people. And as we know, the American government took it farther and created policies known as Willie Lynch and Jim Crow laws, Black Code laws. I mean, we have an extensive history in America where people of color have definitely been facing the backlash of our own country's government and governmental systems. And the reason why we're still unfortunately discussing it is because even though America has made some strides with the 1964 Civil Rights Act and the 1968, another reiteration to the Civil Rights Act. The great ancestor MLK, Martin Luther King Jr. led a lot of that forefront with the SNCC organization, NAACP, which was founded by W.E.B. Du Bois. And then, our brother Malcolm X, over in the Nation of Islam, and him using his platform to raise awareness of the struggles and issues of people of color and Black folks in America. And so the reality is that even though we have had all of that happen, yet still today in America, we have seen people of color, especially our Black men, be still gunned down for no reason. Senseless crimes are still being committed against Black men, particularly for absolutely no reason. This is the 21st century. As I always remind folks, Trayvon Martin happened in an era where America was supposed to be celebrating what was supposed to be, quote unquote, the first Black president. And yet in that era of the first Black president and holding that presidential seat of our country, we had Trayvon Martin killed for no reason, wearing a hoodie and getting Skittles. And then from there, we start to see a domino effect of that. We see Trayvon Martin, then we had Eric Garner over cigarettes. I mean, my goodness, the things that even when you look at even the charge aspect of what these men were facing, it was ridiculous and unnecessary charges even. And so unfortunately, as much as we celebrate the dream, as much as we always listen and replay Martin Luther King's speech, that I have the dream, and we see the videos and the footage of the millions of African Americans and people of color who came to Washington, D.C. to support his voice and his messaging, the reality is that the dream is still unfulfilled. And so therefore, we cannot stop the work. We cannot stop pushing. We cannot stop fighting. We cannot stop advocating. We cannot stop pushing for policies and political pressure on our leaders until the dream is truly fulfilled. So that's why we are still doing the work that we're doing. We are still saying the things that we are saying, because the reality is that since Martin Luther King and, like I said, Brother Malcolm have been present and had their time of leadership in our country, the reality is that 30 to 40 years after their life has passed, and we know they gave their lives for these causes, the reality is that America has still not came through on its end of the dream and the promise. So until that happens, we have to stay feet on ground and continue to use our most powerful tool, which is our freedom of speech, and raise our voices collectively to let our country know that we need changes now, and more importantly, we need to ensure the safety of people of color in this country, that, as our ancestors said, that they are judged by the content of their character and not the complexion of their skin.
Wow, that was such powerful speech, I would say, Constance, and I really loved the sentence that you said, that the dream is still unfulfilled, and it's a long way from here that we have to travel to get that dream fulfilled. And I think that is the determination that every single person needs to have. And the moment every single person has that determination itself, I think half of the battle is won. So I think all the best on that. And here I'm more intrigued after listening to you, and this was such an inspiring speech, I would say. And I'm more intrigued about how Sleeves for Needs come into the picture, and how is your non-profit adding up to the cause, and how is it creating an impact?
Yeah, Sleeves for Needs is a 501c3 social service organization. We do have a second organization known as Black Coffee Justice, which is a 501c4 organization. But in the space of Sleeves for Needs, particularly, how I feel like we do fulfill the dream is that one of the biggest principles of MLK was care. He believed in caring for your brothers and sisters to your left, to your right, your front, and your back. Well, that's one of the things that Sleeves for Needs does. We are a no judgment zone organization. We don't care per se how or even why you're necessarily in your situation. We're looking for the present and the future progression. How do we help you now in your current state? And more importantly, how do we prevent you or even get you out of this state so that in the future you are healthy, you are thriving, you are a productive member of our communities and our societies, and more importantly, someone is there that cares, and so that there is a support system even for you to have, so that you can ensure your success in your gains as we try to get you out of whatever struggle or circumstance you're currently in. So that's one of the biggest pieces I think that we definitely do in Sleeves for Needs. We try to practice the messaging of love and care here. The second thing that I know Sleeves for Needs does is we have our network is made up of folks who come from these backgrounds. My network is full of volunteers and staff and coordinators who used to be homeless themselves. So they understand homeless struggles the best because they used to be there themselves, and they have the knowledge and even the language to communicate with the homeless community to help them, those folks that we connect with, to, like I said before, ensure that we are a safety net, and we are here to figure out how to help them, not judge them. The same thing, we have a drug addiction program. Same thing. The people who are helping with the drug addiction program are people who are previous members themselves who had some form of drug addiction or drug struggle. And some of those folks have turned to counselors and intervention folks today. And even with that network, because my folks who are from that background are the leaders of that particular group in our organization for us, they are able to even connect us with the proper professional links to that. So we are connected to therapists and clinical specialists that are approved by the folks who have already dealt with that background, who knows these are the doctors who are going to help people be successful because, again, of the no judgment zone factor. I'm going to say that a few times because I think that's one of the misconceptions when you talk about homeless and drug addiction. It's a lot of misconceptions and judgment that is thrown on those folks in those categories. And unfortunately, again, as I said, if you don't live that lifestyle, then you won't understand that lifestyle. It's easy to look on the outside and say what they should be doing on the inside, but if you don't live it, then you really don't know it. So that's another section of our organization that I heavily lean upon the members of those types of lifestyles to help us guide us through in Sleeves for Needs as our organization. And then the third factor I think that is critical that we also demonstrate as not just MLK principle, but what America should look like is our diversity. My organization is made up of African Americans, Caucasians, we have our Arabic community members, we have Latino Hispanic folks in our group, we also have men, we have women, we have disabled folks, we have elderly folks. So we are a true diversity group to show that this melting pot of America does really exist. And if we are able to, like I said before, remove our judgments and our prejudice of each other, you can find that you have a holistic and a very healthy and very successful organization that reflects its community that it serves, and more importantly, appeals to the community that is seeking to serve. I will admit that the Latino Hispanic community is probably our greatest explosion of outreach in a demographic that we have normally not tapped into, but it's due to the fact that we have been, like I said, so adamant about maintaining our diversity base of ourselves that it made folks feel comfortable in the Latino Hispanic community to reach out to our organization. And it made me do my part, which as soon as that they started coming in, I got us translators, our Latino Hispanic speakers, to come in and help support our communication with our community in the Latino Hispanic community spaces, because it was critical that they knew that not only that they could come here for help and resources, but also that we will do our part, which is ensuring that we can actually have a functional communication channel and avenue with them as well. So to me, these are three key examples of how Sleeves Needs is definitely trying to be a role model in the spaces of what we are talking about we are needing to see as changes, because I always say one of my models in the organization is we want to be the change that we want to see. And so I think it starts with self first. And if we can do it first and show others how to do it, then it's easier to get others to also participate and to do it as well. Again, someone must set the model. And I feel like Sleeves Needs has been daily and regularly setting the model for everyone to follow.
That was so moving, Constance. And I really appreciate the amazing work that your organization is doing. And I think we are in partners with a lot of Latino, Hispanic, and Asian communities, non-profits as well, who are serving to these communities. And I think they will definitely stand a chance to collaborate and learn from your organization as well, how your organization has maintained the diversity, at the same time serving all those people who are in need, irrespective of their color, their gender, community, or whatever. The person that you're helping just needs to be in the position of needing that help. So that's the entire thing that your organization has, and this is really amazing. And while you were sharing with me all those things that your nonprofit is doing, this came into my mind instantly, that there must be a lot of physical interaction with your nonprofits. And with the advent of pandemic and your nonprofit organization serving the homeless people and the needy people, I think that would have significantly increased during the COVID pandemic times. So I would like to understand from you, what were the challenges that your organization and you faced during the pandemic, due to the pandemic, and how did you come over it, and what have been some great achievements during that? Because I see a lot of nonprofits who have been challenging, but their determination has always brought them out of those challenges and bottlenecks, and they are still flourishing.
Yeah, when the pandemic hit, I think one of the challenges that we had was a huge influx of folks reaching out for services and resources. And, if you've seen some of our numbers, which I have to update those numbers, actually, we're just now kind of pulling in all our demographic information, other factors to update for the this year. But, we went from probably a few hundred folks a month to a few thousand folks a month. And when you have already limited resources and now you're trying to take those limited resources and stretch them out even more, I think that was one of our first biggest challenges, is that we have, like you said, as other organizations have already expressed, how we're going to help all these folks, is we're not trying to cut back anything. We're actually going to try to figure out how we can expand everything at this point. And so there was some frustrations, especially when the COVID pandemic funding came down through the federal and state channels. My organization is a grassroots-based organization, so we're not one of the big brands like, not trying to name call, but United Way, some of these other bigger brand organizations, unfortunately, were the organizations who were getting the money. And it was like, they're not even out here, and they're not definitely on ground zero on the grassroots level. So it was hard to get some of those monies that was very needed at that time, but the beauty of community. And so as folks saw us out on the streets and in the community still doing the work during the pandemic, Many of our community members helped pick up that slack. That a lot of folks started donating from those stimulus checks funds that they were getting, things of that nature. Look at how the universe makes it all work out, basically. It's like everybody just started pouring in their own individual way. We had folks who maybe couldn't donate per se money, but they did donate in masks. Like folks were literally sewing us up masks. I had like hundreds of masks poured into my organization to use for the volunteers and those who were helping, as well as to give to those in the community to also help protect those folks that we were coming across as we were serving different needs. We had some state representatives and some candidates, even some of the political candidates who were running at that time. They were volunteering their time to actually come help serve us with our organization because, when the pandemic happened, everybody had to go quarantine. There was nobody for them to really campaign to. So they was like, well, I can use my time and my resources to help organizations like yours. And so I had candidates at grocery stores buying cleaning supplies and food and dropping it off to elderly members' porches for them and stuff of that nature. So I would say that we thrived and survived through the pandemic with, like I said, limited resources, but it was the community. It wouldn't happen without community support. And I am always grateful and very appreciative of the Knox County community who poured into us during the height of the pandemic, because if it was not for their help and their assistance, honestly, Sleeps and Eats would not have been able to do what we were even able to do during the pandemic as well.
I think I totally agree with you, and you're so wholesomely put the entire thing. And I think society and the community plays a huge role. Whatever the cause, whatever be the issue, whatever be the challenges, and even the successes, I think it's entirely the society and the community that comes out to help you out. Also, I would like to point this out that it's the society that has differentiated people on the basis of color, and it has to be the society only that eliminates this difference and bridges this gap. So I think this is something that is going to be very, very vital for all the non-profit organizations or people who are supporting any particular cause. And here I would like to understand more about those kind of people who have the right intent at their heart to support a particular cause, whom we call volunteer. So we have got in touch with a lot of non-profit organizations, and from every single non-profit organization we have heard one and the same thing, that if we talk about the most important stakeholder in a non-profit organization, it has to be the volunteers, because it's not for the beneficiaries. It's not totally up to the beneficiaries who can create a change, because they are the ones who need the help. And it's not on the founders and the executive directors and the CEOs of the non-profit organizations who can solely create a change with just a thought. That's not going to happen. You need people, and when you don't have full-time staff, since you're a non-profit organization, you need the right people with the right intent to support the cause, and you need the volunteers. So here I would like to understand that since we have been asked to drift into a new normal, we have been pushed into a new normal after COVID-19 pandemic, everything went virtual. And now I'd like to understand your non-profit's interaction and engagement with your volunteers, and what are some different ways that people like us who have some skill, some time to share and to contribute to your cause, how can they come up and support your organization in their cause?
Yeah, you're right. The volunteers are definitely the heartbeat of any organization. If you have an organization that doesn't say that's the same, then you might want to question that organization's morality, because the volunteers are definitely the face of everything. They are the ones who, like you said, meet the folks who are in need. They're the ones going out and doing the homeless outreaches on the regular basis that we have it scheduled for. They're the ones that, even when the requests come into the emails and the inboxes, they're the ones who are coordinating that information and getting assimilated back out into the group. You're right. As the chair of the organization, I do more of our logistics work. I'm the one that's meeting with Trader Joe's people and setting up Trader Joe's as a new food partnership. I'm the one that's meeting with Target and getting them to come in and be a sponsor for our toy drives and things of that nature. But you're right. Once I complete the contractual agreements with whatever corporation or business that we're going to partnership with for whatever event or if it becomes a long-term thing, the reality is that yes, at some point I give it to the volunteers and they make all the magic happen at that point. And the truth be told is, like I said, with Sleeves for Needs volunteers, again, with a pandemic happening, I always tell folks, my policy here in Sleeves for Needs is you always do what is best for you, because if you're not okay, then you can't make sure anybody else is okay. So I'm really big on taking care of your home first. But I was surprised when the pandemic hit, and I told folks, I understand for whatever reasons, we all may have our own reasons of why we can or cannot continue to volunteer in Sleeves for Needs. And I gave my volunteers that grace period. I said, hey, if you got to walk away, I understand. And this is kind of like now the time to do it. What I was surprised at was how many stayed and how they came back with their friends. Like they brought people back. Like, oh, we got more people plus ourselves. I was like, oh, wow, And so it was able to work out. And like I said, we had so many requests coming in, and then the team itself kind of beefed itself up. And I was like, oh man, this is really going to happen. Like I was surprised. Like I was definitely thinking like, man, I'm about to be back out here in the field every day again. Like when it was first starting up Sleeves for Needs, I haven't been out in the field like that in a while, but I was prepared to do it if it came to that. Cause I was like, people are in need and we cannot not help these people. And so when all that took place, I like you said, I realized that the greatest appreciation definitely goes to my volunteers and the folks who really made it happen. They chose to be here, which I really was appreciative of. And more importantly, many of them said that because of the isolation that COVID brought upon us, that this was helping their own mental health. This was helping their own spiritual and emotional health, that they needed these people connections. And if anything, they were grateful that Sleeves for Needs was still one of the few nonprofits in the community at that time, still providing that kind of output and still that type of outreach. So I was surprised to hear some of my volunteers' testimonies actually behind what Sleeves for Needs is actually doing for them particularly. And so with that, I learned that Sleeves for Needs, I actually learned it's more than just helping folks. It's more than helping folks in need per se, because even the folks who are helping the folks in need, there's some fulfillment in there for them that even is fulfilling for them as well. Like they're fulfilling a need that they have in themselves as well. And it's not the materialistic or the resource need, it is the emotional and the human engagement need. And so to just see a full circle beauty like that, like it's just all coming together as one. And really having the principle of Sleeves for Needs at the center, because if you've seen our logo, you'll notice that heart is the globe with the heart in the middle, and that's the concept here. Is like I said before at the beginning of this call, one of the practices I do believe we're fulfilling when we talk about ancestor Martin Luther King is his principal message of love and care. He was big on that. And so that is really the heart of Sleeves for Needs, is the love and care concept. We are a caring organization. We are a loving organization. And that's why I said that we fulfill those principles, because we're no judgment zone organization. You can't love and care somebody and then judge them. It's just kind of how that doesn't work. So it's like either you're going to judge folks or you're not. And so we have chosen the not road, because we want to love and care folks, not judge folks. So with that aspect of it, yes, the volunteers are by far the most critical, the most critical asset to the entire team. I mean, again, Trader Joe's and the food is great, but at the end of the day, you can't even get the food to the folks from Trader Joe's unless those volunteers are actually on the ground. So I will forever always have a very deep compassion and extreme big soft spot in my heart for the volunteers, because these folks are, like I said, the most critical asset to our organization. And then as far as how can folks help us, of course, as always, is to donate, definitely donate to the organization. But how can folks help us? I tell people that right behind donation, it is volunteering. We always are going to need volunteers. Right now, like I said, we're coming out of the holiday season, so it is going to slow down just a little bit. But the reality is that we're having another COVID surge. And like I said, with COVID has been present, like I said before, I feel like we have never really had any time off since then, because the demands of COVID are constantly coming in. That just seems to be something that's not going to stop really anytime soon. And then the next big thing that we're gearing up for is we do free lawn care in the spring and summer. And so that's kind of what we're getting ready to start really collaborating our strategies around as we prep up for the lawn care season. Those lawn care services are provided for free to our elderly, our disabled, our single mom homes, and anyone who gets one of those county, city, what is it called? They're like warnings, basically. Like when people's grass becomes overgrown, I'm pretty sure everybody in their city has something like this. That yes, so city code come around and say, hey, your grass is too high, you need to cut it. But in our county, they charge $500 for that. And so we have actually been actively. That was kind of the driving force of the lawn care program. Period, was trying to find a way to help our impoverished community not be hit with this additional fee. When they're always struggling to put food on the table and keep the lights on in their homes in the first place. And now where are you gonna get $500 from for a grass cut? That's just not being realistic. So that was really the driving force behind the lawn care program. But it really expanded way beyond that once folks started learning what we were doing and who qualifies basically for the program. It brought in a lot of elderly members and other folks as well. And that's why I said that we stopped being, okay, you need a fee warning to say you need a cut. If you've qualified under these demographics, then you can get a free lawn care service from us for the entire summer at that too. It's not a one-time cut, it's for the rest of the summer cut. And so that's kind of our next really big program. And so if folks would like to get engaged in that, whether help donating equipment towards the lawn care program, or like I said before, bodies to actually come out and help cut those yards and do that grass service for our community, that's always a great way to get involved. Like I said, we always have yearly events. Like I said, at the end of the years, obviously the coat drive, turkey drive, toy drive. Summer, spring, we have our lawn care program. And then we are trying to talk about bringing back our community garden. That was something that we did 2 years ago before COVID had hit. We had a community garden. It was over out in a plot of land in the East Knoxville community area. It was an open garden, so the children were the real organizers behind it. It was really for our kids to teach them agriculture and garden. And we brought the kids out and they planted watermelon, green beans, cucumbers, several different types of tomatoes, a few different types of peppers. What else do we have out there? I think we had some squash. Yeah, it was a variety of different fresh garden fruits and veggies. And what happened was the children would basically take care of the garden. But then what we had was some of our homeless community members were coming through and doing the watering of the garden for us. And so I told the homeless folks that if they watered the garden, they were welcome to take whatever they wanted. And that was really the thing for the whole community. It was an open garden. So I told everybody in the community that if you help water or help care for the garden, you could take whatever you wanted once the harvest came in. And it was really exciting, and that went really, really well. And so we are trying to get that back going this year, just because food deserts and food scarcities are a real thing. And so the garden was definitely one of the greatest ways that we were able to make a direct food contribution to our community without us having to be present or have to be there to give it to anyone. So that's something that we're looking to bring back. And I'm trying to think, then we do a back to school drive, but that'll be a little bit later. But then we have a huge back to school drive. We gave out 100 backpacks. I think it was a little over 100. I think we gave more like about 150 to 200 backpacks to back to school for any student in need. And we had all the supplies, from the paper to the pencils, the notebooks, the crowns, you name it. It was for all the age groups, from kindergarten all the way up to the seniors in high school. And so that's another really big thing that we want to try to bring back this year again to also support. So those are just some different ways to support us and different things that we have going on and events we have coming up. And like I said before, to me, as you already pointed out, I totally co-sign that the biggest asset to the organization is our volunteers. So that's one of the greatest ways you can put in to Sleeves for Needs, is coming and helping us do some of the work that we do for the community.
Wow, this is so amazing, and there are so many ways. I think it's more important to have that right intent at heart that I've been saying all along in our conversation, because it's not about what different ways a nonprofit has. It's about the willingness of a volunteer to volunteer for a particular cause, and a nonprofit, I think once they have that willingness, it's not at all difficult to find a way to help for that cause and that nonprofit. So I think that is something. And I think those are all my questions, Constance, and thank you so much for so wholesomely answering all of them, because even if I had some or the other cross questions within our conversation, I think they were completely cleared through your answers that you said, and thank you so much for that. And one last thing that I'd like to ask you is a message from you to all those potential volunteers who would be watching this particular video, telling them that how their bare minimum effort and contribution of time can create such a huge impact in the society on the beneficiaries that you serve and your nonprofit as well. Just a message for them.
Dear volunteers, thank you for everything that you do. You are the fulfillers in every aspect of our community. You are the hope givers. You are the inspirators. You are the people who people look for as resolution, and the truth tellers and the truth carriers of their stories. Again, it is no way possible to do the things that we do without the amazing folks who have the compassion and the love and the care in their hearts to say that I know that if there's any way I contribute to helping to uplift and empower and support my brothers and sisters and help my brothers and sisters be better men and women, it is by me contributing my time and my efforts to ensure that not only are we successful as a people, but we are successful as society. And more importantly, you are the example setters daily for our government officials and administrative folks to see that it is possible and it absolutely is necessary that we all find our own way to contribute to the greater good of mankind. So thank you from my heart, absolutely, for everything you do across this country and all the organizations and nonprofits across the country that, again, without you, nothing we do will be possible. Thank you for your time and your service. I am truly grateful from the bottom of my heart.